Alright, in this video, I think I'm going to show you guys a bit of the woodworking side of things, of how I built the desk. I found this book, which was pretty cool. This was my original book that I used when I was trying to sketch out how I'm going to build it. So here you can kind of see, this is when I just learned what I needed to do in a computer setup. This is when I first learned the components that you need to build a computer. And this is the desk component, so I wrote down kind of just a rough idea. I don't think that was completely accurate, but a rough idea of what I needed to get. This was just, I don't know, putting out some specs at the time to see what I wanted. This is my water cooling plans. So as you saw in the previous video, the water cooling system set up there. I did a few iterations of that design. Because I think this design was meant to be just one loop. But I ended up designing into two separate loops, just so it didn't have any interference with the two pumps if they moved at different speeds. This was the original plans for the desk design. So let's say like that piece of wood is the piece that's under the computer. As you can see, there's this cutout on a slight angle, which is that cutout there. These were just the sides and everything. That's glass, so the glass was just here. The glass, I didn't really order it. I just kept an eye out on Gumtree for glass that seemed mildly appropriate, and then whichever one was right, I just jigsaw cut the width that was needed. Here we have the design for the cupboards. So this cabinet over here is just that cupboard there. So these pieces, you know, that just had to be 90 degrees, which I discovered later on after designing this, just so that that can have two pieces of wood on the inside and outside. This front was just a rough idea for what I wanted to include. The front was with that cutout. It's just there with that slight angling, which I thought looked pretty cool. Then, in all honesty though, this desk, I found some YouTuber that built something similar. I couldn't build it as cool as he did, but you know, I did what I could. I just thought that the cupboards looked pretty, all these angles looked pretty cool, so I did my best. At the time, I only had a handsaw, which we can actually find here. I didn't actually use any like power tools to cut it. It was just this baby, this Stanley handsaw. Cut all these angles and everything, and I just did it as straight as I could. And then eventually I got a jigsaw, which kind of helped, but I just didn't have any like circular saw equipment or anything like that. Moving into this, I don't know, there's not much else, but just more planning. This was really how I was planning the water cooling loop. All the little dots. I think this is kind of the similar idea. This is what we ended up going with. Two separate loops. The little dots are just the fittings and different components there. And yeah, look, I mean, I just did a lot of different designs as to how I thought that the water loop was going to work. And I ended up sticking with whichever one I have. That is a bit more detail into that complex fitting system. It's a bit hard to read, but you know, at the time I understood what I was writing. And then here was kind of like, that's kind of what we needed if I wanted to, as a fittings, as the like the water cooling parts, a list of what I needed. And then I just had to keep an eye out on, you know, websites, eBay, Gumtree, whichever ones could, you know, get me a decent price for it. I think that was close to the final design, except that was a kind of a figure-8 loop. They were connected, they were not separated. And then I got a bit of a buying log about how much I cut the things I bought for this build, which I'll include lists in the descriptions of these videos. So, more about the desk. The top thing, this piece was just two pieces of 18mm MDF, and then I used a jigsaw, cutting it at 45 degrees with the blade at a 45-degree angle. I cut that bit off because I don't think the point wasn't too sharp, so that still looks pretty cool. Then over here for support, I have two of those things also cut at funny angles. At the time, before I had the speakers on the side on that support beam, and then my dad told me that it was not good, wouldn't be good for hi-fi sound, needs something more secure, which we'll look at how I've set that speaker up now. in the hi-fi video. And we also have so they're just the two cupboards. This one's sealed. This one I kept procrastinating and I still haven't sealed it, so I just use it as like a port I can reach in, and I've got this random microphone thing that you can plug into your phone. I've got the wood ready. It's just not painted yet here, which would have fit like that way. I just needed to cut it to size. But yeah, I'll do that one day if I'm ever bothered. About the build, also just have a piece of wood at the back, which you would have seen in the earlier video, which just covers the cables. So from like this angle, it all looks pretty clean. It's all just black. If you look under, then yeah, it's a bit messier then. For this water thing, I needed to drill it's kind of a bit messy, but underneath it's not very clean. I needed to drill a big hole so that the water could fit through it. And then I just cut out these circles using like a hole cutting jig and then a drill to get that sizing I needed. And then I just chopped it in half and then wrapped it. Probably could have been a better solution to this, but it's the best I could do at the time. So I just stuck with that and it looks all right. So from a distance, you know, it's all just covered up and nice and neat, no exposed cables or holes in the table. This little contraption was just this circle was actually a cutout from where the fan was, and then I painted it and reused it. I just put a screw there, didn't tighten it all the way so that it actually can rotate, which is necessary because to lift the glass I'll need to get this out of the way, which I'll show you in a moment. And then I installed this little stand on there so that, like you saw before, you can actually put your phone onto that, and then you can charge it, just leave it standing up so you can see your notifications and everything. Got an Apple sticker just because I had it. And what else? We've got, we've got like this front panel, which is just got all the different controls you need on it. Got the grill on it. I think that's about it. I'm gonna try and open up that glass and then we'll take a look inside. Okay, to open up the glass, all I need to do is move all the keyboards, microphone and everything off the glass. The cables are fine, I'll lift them up. And especially this thing, got to get that out of the way. Move all this off of the glass. And then from underneath, I will push this up and then it will release from the cables. And then we can hold it up. And then that way now I can actually look inside the desk and then do any repairs if necessary. Or, you know, if things are a bit out of alignment, which now I can fix this hard drive. And this power supply is a little bit crooked, which we can adjust. That looks a bit better. So how this glass contraption works, I have cut the cutout is exactly the size of the glass, which just makes it look flush. Then what I did was I installed pine underneath that sits out a bit so the glass can rest on it, with vertical pine supports in all four corners, which basically makes it like very hard to break, because I mean if they're vertical, the wood's strongest on the end grain. And then because the thickness of the top board is not the same as the glass, I added these little things, which were just 3mm MDF pieces, and painted them until two of them, which like makes up for the size difference from the glass and the wood. And then on the end, all I did was I left a gap so that the glass sits kind of like a hinge. So instead of buying a hinge, I just kind of have like a makeshift hinge mechanism that kind of just works good enough for me so that I can open it. I don't open it that often. Just sometimes maybe to clean that glass. And then you can see all the computer components inside. So what do we have? We've got, you know, all the motherboards there. That's the center of everything. That little water block is to the CPU. Motherboard Z170 Deluxe, I think it was. And then there's the hard drives, pump, CD thing, all these cables. The white cables, they all run under the motherboard, so it's very slick. You know, not cable management is decent. I ran out of black cables, so this is one random red cable, which is not bad. I'll just keep it there for now. We also have all this cable. That white cable is just the iPhone cable. I have a water cooling fitting in there, just so when I need to, I can clear out water. Power supply, fans moving, so I think it means it's, you know, getting a bit hot. SLI bridge, which looks pretty cool. Alpha Cool water blocks. These are probably my preferred choice for water blocks. They look, you know, they're metal, and I think they've got really good cooling capacity because they're all made of metal, and it looks pretty, you know, strong and beefy. And this I'll show you later in the audio side of things. Here is just the 3.5 cable, and I added that block, which is just for strength. So whenever I'm building anything like this, like if the middle is heavy, if you just chuck in a vertical block of wood, that will just like add like 10 times the strength needed. So I'd recommend doing that if you ever have any projects similar to this. And that's not much else for the build, but a last feature that I will show, which was pretty interesting. Let's fix this up first. Alright, the last kind of feature that was pretty cool was I had this souvenir from Fiji, which was one of their vintage like fighting swords or something, and I just added, real simple, I just added 2 screws, wrapped it in tape so that the metal doesn't dig into the wood, and then now I can just rest here. So kind of like a weapon, which looks pretty fun, for being honest. So yeah, that's it for like the woodwork build kind of side of things. We'll see more if there are any more videos I can make about this desk.